this is where, oddly enough, I went to college because my friend told me that we need funding, and then he said, why don't you go to college?
Welcome back to Just Kidding News. Out of the closet. We got Joe back, and we're talking about Joe joining a gang. Kind of a silly episode.
Yeah, it was like
a whimsical affair.
What was that movie? The Sharks.
Yeah.
What's that story?
What's that story? No.
Yeah.
I think by this point, I wasn't fully like in this world yet. I just got out of graffiti. I went to court, got probation. I was being drug tested. I had a PO officer. I convinced my mom to move to the San Gabriel Valley because at this point, like, I found a whole new set of friends, and they were just ravers and drug dealers.
That's cool.
And a lot of at the time, I didn't know they were a gang, but a lot of Asian organized crime would use teenagers to go sell their drugs at raves and all this stuff. And I just thought they were like rich party kids. I didn't know that they were, in my mind, there was no such thing as like poor Asians. I thought they were all nerds. And then I go visit them in the San Gabriel Valley, and I'm like, oh shit, you guys got like 4 families living in this house. You guys are like, you're like refugee, like war-torn poverty people. Like, I never seen this before. But like, it was a group where I felt like, oh, these guys are cool, you know, like they like to party all the time. I want to be closer to them. And then one of my buddies here, his name is Sean, and he was one of my first friends that I made at the rave that said, why don't you move out of Gardena and come to Monterey Park? And I wasn't even considering that. And then that's kind of where I asked my mom, like, hey, can we get out of there? And then she was like, yeah, I think it's time for a change. So we moved right down here to Monterey Park. I got enrolled into school. I already had a set of friends that I was walking into. And these guys were not gang affiliated, but they operated like organized crime because there would be like Asian triad guys that would send them drugs, right? They operated like a gang without a name. And then every single time we would go to these parties and all this stuff, like, they would have all kinds of drugs on them all the time. And I was like, damn, these guys are so rich. And then they take care of you. Like, you never had to pay for anything. Like, we would go out to restaurants and the bill would be like $100. And I'm like, teenagers can like pay for this shit? And I was like, that's crazy. And then so I just naturally started selling for them too, or selling with them. And you know, it was just a really fun environment. And I think from there, I started reconnecting with old friends again, not knowing that they were all a part of a gang. And I started understanding like this whole gang world deeper and deeper because I liked hanging out with my childhood friends that I haven't seen in decades, right? And then we have a mutual one that, you know...
How do you see clues they're in the gang?
They talk about it. They said, this is our name. This is... I was like, what's that? You know, I know what a gang was at that time because I've been around it so much. But the Asians operate so differently from like Mexican gangs. And I think Asians at the time were kind of having this identity crisis about like, should we dress more threatening and cool? Because when I was coming into the thing, like a lot of the Asian gangs, like they were taught, don't dress like a gangster. Yeah, they were taught like, why are you looking like that? Like, what do you want to be Mexican or like?
They had like Banana Republic clothes.
Yeah, it's more like the GQ style.
Turtlenecks and slacks.
Yeah, and then they ran errands for the mob here, but they were told to like, hey, dress like respectable or whatever. But then the younger generations were like, nah, we want to look hard. We want to like represent or whatever. They wanted to look like a thug. And so it was kind of this, you had some Asian gangs that were more traditionally operated. You had some that were more street oriented. You had some that were like, they were no different from Black and Mexican gangs. They were more like, you know, like bald head, Cortezes. The way that they dressed, they looked like, you know, what you saw on TV with Snoop Dogg and everybody, right? They had that style. And usually the Southeast Asians operated more like that. And then the Chinese operated more organized and stuff like that. And so at this point, I never like thought of even joining but I just liked their company because they always had a great time. There were always girls, there were always things to do, there were always homes that were like open, and it just didn't matter. So you start feeling like, I own this fucking city, but you're 15 years old. You know, like you're 15 years old, you're going to like a cafe, and waiters that are full-grown adults are pouring beer in a tea mug because the gang bosses or whoever said, I want beer. And these establishments that don't serve alcohol, they're so terrified that they'll be like, all right, we'll serve it to you, sir. And then they'll be like, at the time, you remember, like, you were able to smoke in restaurants. So you had these 15-year-old babies drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, acting like full-grown adults, right? So you felt like, oh, I could do whatever I want with this group. And then so eventually, like, I just spent so much time with my childhood friends. And it was funny because there was a lot of Japanese members in this Chinese gang. And I'm not ever going to give them any clout because I just don't like that. But what got me to join was there was like 3 of us at a donut shop. And I remember their rival came in. And there was like, we're outnumbered. But these guys were so tough in my head because they're like, I don't care if there's more than us. As soon as they saw them, they went for it. And I was like, oh, I guess we're fighting now. And I was the 3rd guy, and you know, we got beat, but we went full force. And I was like, these are the kind of guys that I want to be around. And I think I've been searching for that because I've been getting the shit kicked out of me. And I was like, these guys are pussies. They're ready to walk into a situation outnumbered, and they still lead the charge, and they'll fight these guys knowing that they're going to lose. And I was like, ooh, that's the kamikaze spirit that I want to be a part of. And I think a part of me was looking for a strong group of friends that would help me take revenge. Not that I was consciously saying this, but I feel like I felt so goddamn weak that I was like, I want to be a part of a group that makes me feel strong. And I think for the first time, I was like, okay, how do I get in? I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this. Whatever you guys are doing, I'll do whatever I need to do. And I think at the time, too, like, they weren't operating like traditional Mexican gangs and all that, where they were like, oh, we'll jump you in. And you just had to go do crime with them. So they're like, okay, we're going to go do this job. So there's a house that they found. We have to go in. We have to do this. We have to break in. You do that, whatever. And then at first they would just have me like drive or look out or do the safer shit. And then later they taught me other things like, you know, breaking in and how to do things. And then they're like, you do it in the daytime, you don't do it at night. And so eventually it's like one of those things, right? Where you have these older father figure guys that are like telling you, I'm proud of you. You're cool. Like, you're doing a good job. And then when people talk about you like to their friends, like, oh, this guy he's this, and then you just feel like, oh, like, I'm loved, I'm admired, these guys are like looking after me, right? And another reason why I joined is because the older guys were they were involved in drug dealing and all this stuff, but I thought it was so smart that they got a job as a security guy at the Long Beach Convention Center because they knew that a rave was gonna come. And their whole plot was, well, when we're the security guys, we're gonna bust all the dealers, take all the drugs, you guys sell it.
That's fucking great.
Right? And then so
Pretty fucking great.
15, 16 years old, and I'm like, these guys are genius. At this time, my morality was so skewed too that this was normal, and this was like, oh, these guys are, this is the, you know, like when you're going for a job and like, you're like, I want to be a part of Apple. They're crushing it, right? And that's kind of how I felt. It was like, wow, I've never heard of anybody. Like for me, all I know is, hey, here's your bag, go to the rave, sell it all. That's all I know. I don't know about, wait, we can actually not have to hide like a rat? Like we can operate freely? Like, that's crazy.
Is there a fear in busting the dealers by anybody, or no?
No, because some of these dealers are not a lot of them were just like ravers.
Okay, got it.
So they're like,
Low level.
yeah, they're like
They're kids too.
they're kids too, and you know. And I'm sure there were no other gangs there, or maybe they discussed it, or I don't know what it was, but I felt that was like when I felt immunity of like, oh, like we are in cahoots with the government here. And we made a lot of money, and I think it was the first time in my life where I'm making thousands of dollars. I'm like, I'm a teenager, and I just feel on top of the world. I have a girlfriend, and you know, like, I'm busting nuts. I lost my virginity. You know, I'm a man, right?
Like, I'm a fucking entrepreneur.
Right.
I'm on the up and up, baby.
And yeah, we're rolling in luxury cars. You know, like Mercedes, BMWs, all that. Are like, and then back then, you know, you drove around with 4-5 cars deep everywhere you went.
Sick.
Cause you're a bunch of fucking pussies and you're afraid. So you need like 40 people with
Love
you.
it,
You know,
love
yeah. And it was just literally like a, you know, it felt like we were like a Mongolian horde of Genghis Khan's guys just riding into town with a bunch of horses, right?
That's cool.
You're eating every pussy.
Eating everything
All
that
of them.
in sight.
Consensually, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when
do it
you're
different style.
bored,
Who's paying for it?
you want to make a name for yourself, so you go to one of the pool halls and you start shit and you fight, and one of your friends, you know, does something and you're excited, and you it's just pointless fucking exciting things for young men, right? And like that was probably one of the best moments of my life at the time, feeling powerful and confident even though it was false, because I've always felt weak. And looking back, it is weakness, still weakness. It's a false sense of power, because you're just violent toward people that are weaker than you, or like
But you're not getting your ass beaten. For you, that
I'm
was
not
like-
anymore.
Yeah.
Now we're beating ass,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. For
And
you,
now
that's big.
I feel like, okay, and I still have this heart feeling of I want to kill the guys that bullied me.
Yeah.
And so I tell these guys my story. Well, first they laughed at me and said what a bitch I was and all that stuff.
That's what we just, yeah.
Responsible friends.
Responsible friends.
Good friends. Yeah.
But it made them mad, and they said, we're gonna go. And then so, this is stupid, because obviously we're not gonna catch, how you gonna know where they are or whatever. We're driving around town, guns loaded, everything. I was like, when I see them, I'm gonna fucking murder them. And it's like,
That's tight.
you have Tupac playing in the background. It's the stupidest shit,
Dude,
dude.
thank God Facebook didn't exist.
Ambitions as a writer.
Stupidest shit.
Facebook and live.
Kill people, you'd be in jail right now. You just be a jail bitch right now.
And I was just so mad. I remember we were just so mad. I had all this anger, right? And then like my friend, he's a nutcase. He looks over and he sees this guy and he goes, "Oh, he's fucking looking at us." And I'm like, "What?" And so we had all this anger, so we just pull up and he's walking with like a couple girls, and we just beat his ass on the street.
Holy shit.
Because we couldn't find the other guys. We just feel,
Yeah, just all pent
we
up.
just fucking feel angry, right? And
Had a
so-
comment, honestly, that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, probably did something.
Why is he with so many girls?
Yeah, yeah. What do you do to get those girls?
Probably did something. Don't worry about it, kids.
But it would literally be like so many of these kind of incidences.
So many.
Yeah, like one of
But that's what you do when you're 15 and you're
Yeah.
fucking around your...
and one of these guys, you know, we're really close till this day. And he left that life and all that stuff, and he's been to prison and everything and changed his life around. But it was a weird, wild time where I think where it's changed me is my idea of loyalty and brotherhood. Like, I don't know. Like, I've seen situations where the older guys would go to prison for each other. He's like, I can't do this. This is my third strike. We had a 33 strikes rule at the time. If you catch your third one, you're doing life in prison. So I remember situations where they're like, hey, will you do this one for me? Or they'll be like, okay, I'll do this one. I remember like...
That's super Yakuza style.
Yeah, like those were kind of things that I saw that I was like, wow, like this is real love. It wasn't. But it's the depth of how...
It's a different type of loyalty you
Right.
weren't used to, though. Yeah.
Fugazi.
Yeah. Like if we were to, like normal friends, right? Like let's say you got attacked on the street. In most cases, they'll be like, hey, dude, I called the cops for you, but you want me to like endanger myself? That's common sense. But in this world, if you don't step in, that's it. You're ostracized. Like, you're a fucking disloyal piece of shit. But, like, for me, that's the kind of world I was in. We're outnumbered. Odds are against us. They have weapons. Fuck it. We're going to die together. Like, it's so stupid, but that was your duty. And so, for me, I always thought, like, oh, these guys are the real good guys. And the bad guys are the police. The bad guys are everybody else, the teachers, these liars. They're pussies anyway. They will never fight for each other, you know? And so, when your mind equates manhood to just risk and violence, like, you operate on such a different world that I don't even understand. I don't think that the normal person can fathom what that mind is like. So at that time, it was like this weird feeling of like, oh, I like these guys more than my family. These guys are my family. I'm with them every day. They take care of me. I take care of them. And there's this false sense of like cult-like love, right? Like, you guys are 100% loyal to each other. But where it started breaking down was there was a rivalry, and there was a drive-by shooting, and this is actually on the news, and there's an article written about this whole incident, because the guy who was at the house, they knew, so we were arranging like to settle a score of like, hey, let's just go to the park and just fucking fight this out, and well, let's be done with. And they knew we were gathering at one of these homes, and so they planned a drive-by shooting, like a fucking coward, right? Instead of us getting together and fighting it out. And yeah, they executed not even one of our members, but they executed someone that was a part of the assassins group. They had several different cells within their group, and they had internal issues after that because they ended up killing their own within their own.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the reason why that guy was there is he was just an innocent bystander. He just wanted to come over and smoke some weed. So he was at the front, you know, and then so that happened. And
This is the same situation that Johnny confirmed.
Yeah, so yeah, because Johnny's organization was that side. Not our rival, but it was like with, yeah.
Context for the kids.
Yeah.
Johnny
Chang is now a reform, like, you know, gang member. He's a preacher now. And
He's a former guest here.
Yeah, he was a former guest. Yeah, but so obviously we had to retaliate because our reputation was on the line, and things got real. Because before this, there was no like back and forth shootouts. We had a lot of fights. We stabbed a couple people, whatever. Like it was never like seriously let's start shooting up homes and all this stuff. Where other gangs did, they're hardcore like that. But we were more like burglaries and business and drug dealing and working for other guys. So when it came down to the reality of it is like, okay, now who's gonna pull the trigger, right? And my nutcase friend, I think they were all just egging this on. And the guy that should have done it manipulated him into thinking that he should do it. Damn. So they planned one guy out to be the driver, that guy to be the shooter, and then they said, okay, well, the older guys were like, we need X amount of dollars, and we need you guys to go get all the tools for this, the guns, whatever. So we crowdfunded. And the first thing that was odd to me is like, why do the youngsters have to crowdfund and get the guns? Why don't they just have it? And at this time, too, the older guys, they all had different like cases on them. So they just fresh out of prison. They didn't want to go back. They had to be careful. They had ankle brace, like, you know what I mean? So like they were just like, we don't want any of this, but we're gonna help you organize it. So we had all this money put together. And then we were like, where's the guns? Like, how come? And then what came back was like 1 or 2 weapons. And we're like, we need more than this. And we thought we were going to get more than this. Come to find out that a lot of them had a coke addiction. So a lot of that money just went to them partying. And once I found out all this stuff, it just broke the facade up. And I was like, this is fucking crazy. Like, I thought everybody was ride or die here. Like, what are we doing? And then so my close friend, the guy that was supposed to be the shooter, I just felt like that was so wrong. It should have been this other guy who had and started the rivalry, and it should have been his responsibility. But he's the craziest guy that will do it. So I pulled him aside and I said, hey, like, all this stuff we're doing, from the dealing to the whatever, from selling and breaking into homes, selling all the goods, I was like, why do we need a name? Like, we don't need a name. Like, when you have a name, you have a target on your back. He's like, we're the wet bandits.
We plug up the sink and we leave.
And I was like, and some of the people in our group,
So dumb.
they're just so hot-headed that they just start so much shit that they just bring so much bad attention. They just want to fight, right? And I'm like, what if we just start something new without them? And I was hella scared saying this because I was like, I didn't know where he stood.
It's mutiny, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so it's funny. I told this story before, and people were like, "You unionized the gang and you fucking did a walkout." And I'm like, "That's literally what happened." So we talked to him, and I was like, "Who else you think would be down with this, right?" And so we talked to other people, and we got majority of the members out at one day. So, well, for one, we realized that the older guys wasn't gonna retaliate in any way.
Yeah, they gonna bring us on.
They were just hella disappointed. I think it broke their heart more than anything, because I think what their belief was when shit got real, you guys deserted us. But our belief was this was the responsibility of certain other members that started the beef, and they needed to finish it. And also, we feel betrayed that you guys used all the money for crack. And
That's not writing.
yeah, that's not.
Not
Like,
right.
you used all the money for
Selfish.
crack.
You gotta spread the love with the boys.
And that was the moment when we actually left that life. We continued to do, all the dirt.
But you became independent contractors.
Yeah.
Just like we are.
Escort.
We have no boss. We have no boss here.
Really smart. We did escort, but it doesn't matter. State of California's like, no, fuck you, you're an employee.
It's fucking lame, dude.
And through that journey, like when I was kind of like reforming myself with our friends, I think we started to go like, yeah, let's just make money, but why do we need this like name? We can still hang with each other. Why do we have to fight for a name? Like, the senseless violence is just stupid. And so my buddy went off and he said, I'm gonna do a grow op and I'm gonna go into that world. And I'll take on the dealing portion of it. And this is where, oddly enough, I went to college because my friend told me that we need funding, and then he said, why don't you go to college because they give you $3,000.
Financial aid.
That's how we could get our business started.
That was the same as somebody being like, "Hey, I need you to go to jail for me."
You're the FAFSA cartel.
And I was like, wait, $4 grand, like FAFSA money?
Yeah.
So I was like,
I was a game
let's
changer, though.
fucking go. I'll buy a pound of weed right now.
Love it.
And that's kind of how it.
Yeah. So when we come back, Joe's going to talk about how they became the Sticky Bandits.